Let's go over how to land these things, just so you do know for future reference, if you ever get big surf up in Colorado.
Yeah.
Go over proper technique. Of course, you always want to, go by your ability and your skill levels and decide on whether or not you need to stow your rods.
Lay them down.
If you need to put them down inside the boat, it's pretty easy to get them up inside the boat. It's always a good idea to cut off jigs, particularly jigs that have big treble hooks on them, because if you do get flipped over and you have that flailing around, that's never a good thing. You don't have to paddle hard out here very often, but launching and landing in through the surf is a couple of those times where you do have to paddle hard. So I usually just take my time, cruise on in, and then that kind of gives you the ability to watch it, see how big it is, how big is the biggest set or the smallest set that I'm absolutely going to have to deal with. One of the biggest mistakes people tend to make is they get so focused on the beach and on getting in that they just start paddling in and they aren't looking over their shoulder. This is surf. This is a surf zone. When I'm surfing, I'm always looking over my shoulder to see where I am when I'm going to catch a wave. So, this is the same thing. You want to see what position you are in on that wave. Because a big set can be coming and just stopping paddling, maybe doing a little backstroke, can stall you to let that big wave go by. But if you're so focused in on the beach and you're just paddling in, you don't know where you are. And the thing is, people run into trouble so quick, they just don't have time to react to it. Now, I may turn around and say, oh my gosh, I'm going to catch this wave. I don't have a choice. At least I'm prepared for it. I know it's coming. Most of the people will just get into that position and all of a sudden they're getting picked up by a wave and they can't react fast enough. So you want to be, looking over your shoulder. You're looking here, you're looking there. In an ideal situation, ideally when you're coming in, you're on the back of a wave, you're following it in. It breaks down below you, it sets you down in the impact zone, and you paddle hard and you get out in front of it. And then you paddle in the rest of the way to the beach. So anyway, that's ideal situation. Follow that wave in, paddle hard, you're on the beach. Ride the kayak all the way up onto the sand. Take your time getting up. Do not get up straddling the boat, because you get off on one side of the kayak. Okay.
Why do you say ride it all the way instead of jumping out?
Why jump out?
Well, if you think you're going to get swamped by the next set.
You're not going to. Right. We're talking about ideal situations here.
Okay.
It's never, in my opinion, it's never a good idea to jump out of the boat, because you never know what you're jumping out on top of.
Right.
You jump out on top of a stingray.
Yeah.
You jump out on top of some rocks, whatever the case may be. It's always better just to ride the boat in. Know how to control your boat.
Even in bigger surf?
Even in bigger surf.
Really?
The key here is learning how to control your boat in the surf zone. Okay? And what that comes down to is knowing how to brace. And bracing is simply this: putting your paddle flat on the water like this and leaning into the wave. Okay? If I start to go over, I push down on my paddle. It pops me right back up. But the whole idea here is, and like snow skiing, you never want to be on your downhill edge. Well, these boats come in and they turn sideways.
Yes.
Okay, so they want to be on their leading edge or their downhill edge. Well, if you catch that edge, you get pitched towards the beach.
Right.
And then the kayak is coming down behind you
on top
and could possibly hit you in the back of the head. So you want to be
I see.
You want to be leaning into the mountain like you are when you're snow skiing. You're leaning into the wave. You're trying to keep that leading edge up so the boat just side slips in with the leading edge forward. And the way you do that is through bracing and just leaning and keeping that downhill edge up. And the boat will side slip all the way in. It doesn't matter how big the surf is. The technique doesn't really change.
Really? You can still keep it up if the waves are...
It can be 5 foot. I can brace into it. You just have to pick the day when you know your skills can handle it. But if you just lean into the wave, the problem is I get so many people when I go lean into the wave, they lean away from it. They put the paddle in there and then they lean away from it because it's not intuitive to really get out there.
Yeah, right. It's not intuitive until you're about
Yeah, I mean, you should be able to really lean that boat over. The thing is, when your paddle is moving across the water, there's a lot of pressure there. So you can lean way out on it. Now, a couple things that will help you to do this, because some people, again, just don't want to do it, is to drop your leg on the side of the boat that you're going to be bracing in. So if I drop this foot in the water, that helps me lower that hip, and I can literally I can lift the leading edge of the boat just by shifting my leg over.
Yeah, by straightening
So just by doing this, by shifting my hip a little bit, I can raise the leading edge of the boat. Does that make sense? I mean, it's pretty flat.
Yeah, right.
But a lot of people get flipped on tiny little days like this because they get overconfident. You know what? The bracing technique doesn't change if it's 1 foot or 3 foot. You know, you still need to be bracing. You still need to be keeping that leading edge up.
And the leading edge is always the beach side.
Yeah, you're always leaning into the mountain. Lean into the wave.
Lean that away.
Yeah, lean towards the
Ideally,
ocean.
I'm going straight, but if I do start to go like this...
Well, what happens? These boats all turn.
Yeah.
You know, they come down the face of a wave and they turn.
Uh-huh.
So you want to be prepared for that. I like my boat to go left. I'm better bracing to my left than I am to the right.
Uh-huh.
So I actually force it that way. You know, if I know my boat's going to start turning, I influence it to the direction that I like to go.
You'll point it to the left so you can brace on the left.
Right. Well, that's also an important thing to do if you are coming in through bigger surf. You're coming in off that big wave. You don't want the bow to come in and drop.
Oh,
so you want to take off at an angle.
Uh-huh.
So if I find that, oh crap, you know, I've caught this wave, I'm going to immediately start my boat into an angle to start it bracing. I'm not going to try and go like that.
You're not, if you catch the wave.
If I catch a wave, I'm going to start it going off at that angle. So I'm already in position to brace to the side I want to. Now that's only if it's a steeper wave. Like if it's one of those waves where if you start coming down, the boat's going to drop, you know, pearl. You want it coming at an angle, so it's less likely to dig. And then, so what I do, if I'm paddling along, I find like, oh no, I'm starting to catch it. I start dragging. I get the boat going at that angle. I'm already in position to brace to this side.
You've started the brace by turning left.
Right.
Don't try to stroke harder on the right.
Exactly. So again, this is very small surf.
Yeah.
It really shouldn't be an issue, but the thing is, there still may be that sneaker set. That's why even on a small day like this, you're eyeballing it. You know, you're looking over that shoulder so you know exactly where you are, so you're going to be safe.
Nope.
Because like you said, the worst thing you want to do is after you're done fishing is have to go home and spend the next 3 hours digging sand out of your reels.
Yeah.
Or I've seen an awful lot of rods get lost or snapped in two.
Oh, boy.
You know,
Yeah.
or the boats get damaged. You know, if somebody flips over, rips the rod holder out of a boat, you know, you just never know. That's why it's always a good idea, again, to stow those rods if you're not sure of your skill level.
Right. Just drop them back behind you.
Have confidence.
Well, I really thought. Now I'm thinking foot.
But
So I don't think
it
there's
doesn't
much
get
to worry
about. The other thing is you always want to remember you stand up slowly off one side of the boat because your legs are fatigued, your legs are tired.
Yeah,
You know, so if you try to stand up really fast, most of the time you end up tripping over your own feet. If you get up straddling the boat, you end up tripping over the kayak, you know, falling on your face.
And then it rolls on your head.
But like I said, I don't see many issues with this stuff today. Well, this little one's gonna get me anyway. Maybe. No, let's just let it go by. Woohoo! And another successful day.